record. Let's share. Hang on. Gotta change the window I'm sharing. All right. Don't worry, Dio. We're gonna get to your example a little bit later. We're gonna give it a little label. All right. Quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. I'm Bebop. My actual name is Clark. I am a composer. I do this for most of my income. I'm also a percussionist, so I'm kind of in a unique position to talk about what works for percussion, what doesn't. Yeah, and let's zoom in. I think real important is just covering the basics real quick with like ranges and sort of how I think people should approach writing for timpani. I think out of the parts I have played, timpani parts are usually the worst. And so these are sort of the ranges you get on timpano. You generally should expect an orchestra to own for timpano unless they're a community orchestra, then they might not. But the bottom drum is D to B flat. Some drums can do a low C, but they usually can't. 29-inch drum is F to D flat. You can expect that most of them will do the F. Some of them will be able to do it E, but expect the F, and the F might even be a little bit sharp. 26, A to F. I've mostly seen it work A to E, and the F is sometimes finicky. And C to A sounds basically right, though the low C on 23-inch drums sometimes is not the best. So I wouldn't trust it. And different brands also have different ranges. So like I know Adam's timpanis definitely have a low C, at least the set I played in undergrad did. That's really basic stuff. For timpani, I think it's really important to understand that you're not playing an instrument with a bunch of notes. You're playing a bunch of different instruments that are set to one note, and you can get a lot of variety that way. So let's go measure 2. And this is inches. I believe it's inches diameter. Because based on what I've seen, it's not inches radius, because that would be massive. That'd be like 5-foot drum, so it's inches diameter. You can't hear. Can you hang on? Let me turn up the finale. Is that better? Can't hear the playback either? Okay. Well, you're just going to trust me, or we can do something where I can just point the mic toward the piano, and I can do some stuff on my piano. All right, so the music I have set up there is pretty simple. If I could turn the piano on. And if you all right. It's not close, but what can you hear this piano though? Okay, that's gonna be a lot better than me trying to sing it. Right? And what you have there is, for the timpanist, if this was a passage, it's really clear to me the timpanist says to who's playing what. This is on the 23-inch. This is on the 26-inch. This is on the 29-inch. They can get that B, I promise. It might not feel like it, but yeah. And when I'm a percussionist, I'm oftentimes thinking about not which note is being played, but which drum is being played. And so when I see this passage, I immediately go, okay, 23, 26, 29, 32. And for the rest of the piece, I'm thinking, okay, this F right here is going to correspond to 23. And then when I see this right here, I'm going to think like, okay, where's that E coming from? What are the other notes? I'm going to go, oh, okay, that's really easy. There's 23 there again. And generally, timpani should be written with, hey, I have notes in mind. Give the percussionist at least a beat and a half at 120. If you aren't too familiar with writing for percussion, I'd recommend giving them a whole measure. It'll make the part easier. They'll thank you. It's not a big deal to have them drop out for a measure. Time to retune. So yeah, like here, the time to retune I know works just because I've played enough timpani. But if you want to retune like all 4 drums, give me at least 2 phrases. So like 16 bars if you want me to completely retune the entire set. Like that's like a minimum, because most timpano don't have gauges. Some do. Some will have like somewhat accurate gauges that'll like tell you what note you're approximately at. But a lot of times you just have to tap the drum, hear the pitch, know the pitch, change the pitch. And you're tuning to an orchestra, and oftentimes you're doing this in 2D passages. It's kind of difficult. So it's not possible to get a low C or C sharp. You can actually. Like if the timpano. That's an exception. When you can get actually really quick changes. There is a John Williams passage. Don't remember what it's from. I think it's from Harry Potter, actually. I don't even know if it's John Williams, but where he has this roll right here. Into this note right here with a crescendo, and that's actually totally fine. But I only know it's fine because I understand how the mechanism works, and I've played it before and was like, that's kind of weird, but it works. So like you can't go, so like if the drum has a low C or C sharp, yeah, that works. The reason this works is because I can tell on most timpano the low D is the lowest note, so I can just put it down to the lowest note at the D, and then immediately when the passage happens, up to the E flat. And it'll actually work better if you know where the E flat is. If you're already tuned to E flat, let's just transpose this up a half step. Transpose this down a half step. Suddenly it's like, okay, we're playing the second lowest note, and boom, immediate change at the downbeat. Basically, the hit at the downbeat will correspond with the moment my foot is driving the pedal to the bottom of its where it can be. It's but that's like a pretty minutia thing, and I wouldn't. It's possible the edges. You can get fast changes in the middle too. It's just for those, you really should know what you're doing, and that's why I don't recommend every person and their mother go out and write a piece that's like, let's just imagine this is a piece for solo timpano. And then we're like, transpose this up a major third. And then transpose this up a major 6. Like if everyone and their mother goes out and writes this piece, don't do that. I will not like that. Because the danger of that is that you get passages that are like this, but with quarter notes instead of whole notes and half notes. And I just like that. This is definitely something you save for a special moment when like the whole orchestra is like, this is probably for like a Neapolitan to like this sort of thing that's happening. Let's jump to measure 6. Or like we have the orchestra here. They're all on E flat. But we're actually in D, or rather arriving to D. So this is like a huge moment thing where orchestra's gonna be doing something like this. And that's what in the excerpt from Harry Potter that I'm thinking about. That's exactly what happens, is that there's a big key change, and it's a really powerful effect. Just don't use it all the time, because not all timpano necessarily have the same mechanism. So on some of, like, I'd use a less nice one for this excerpt, and a much more. It was kind of a pain. The nicer timpano had a different foot pedal that was like latched, and I wish I could explain it better, but unfortunately I can't. Right. We're gonna jump forward to some brief mallet spacing stuff. These are not proper marimba chords. I'll show you kind of my general thoughts on how I approach spacing. So the keeping thing in mind for percussion instruments is that they have 2 manuals. The lower manual, which is all the white keys, and the upper manual, which is all the black keys. Generally, you want to not mix your hands between 2 manuals when you're writing, except for like stuff that works. Stuff that works would be, so when, let's say, if everyone holds out their hand, just for me, just bear with me here, and you turn it inwards. You notice how it's a lot easier to turn your hand inwards because you can use your arm to turn it inwards. You turn it outwards, it's really awkward and you lose a lot of power. So a lot of times mallet music that has like the 4th mallet on one, let me, this is a better explanation. All right, so see this voicing right here? This is a good voicing. Mallets prefer wider intervals as opposed to smaller ones, because the hand position is less collapsed. You get a little bit more power. It's pretty good. And the reason that this is going to be better than, say, this is a voicing I've seen before. So the reason that A is better than B, so A's got wide voicings, which means it's going to be a lot easier for 4 mallet marimba to voice. The left hand, even though it's between 2 manuals, is angled inwards towards the other hand. When you angle outwards towards the other hand, you have to shift your entire body to compensate for that, to actually get that shift. And especially on less wide intervals, like this C to E flat in example B, your hand's going to be very, very uncomfortable. And your right hand's also going to be very uncomfortable. You're going to look like a little T-Rex, and you're not going to get a lot of power. And honestly, I probably wouldn't play this piece if someone handed it to me if it had this voicing in it, unless the rest of it was very good. But A is great. A is a beautiful, beautiful voicing, and everyone should look at the voicing of A and be like, okay, this is great. Generally, the good intervals are going to be third, fourth, fifth, sixth. When you get higher, seventh is fine. So like if we're like up here, this seventh is probably gonna be fine. You're gonna get less power just because the top of the marimba doesn't speak that well. And likewise, like the lower you go, like this third here isn't fine, but this third down here, ignore finale. It doesn't understand marimba ranges. The marimba ranges. Generally, from what I've seen, the marimba range is from here to there. Sorry. There. So like this is a 5-octave marimba range. 4-octave is gonna be that. 4 1/3 octave is gonna be that. I don't think I've ever seen a 4.5-octave marimba in my life. Are there similar ranges for like a tremolo between two notes as opposed to a block chord? Yes. I would like anything that applies to a block chord is going to apply to like anything. So like if this was tremolo, this would actually be even harder if this was tremolo. Unless you want just these two notes repeated as a block chord, in that case, it's going to be just as easy. And like I want to emphasize this voicing here isn't hard; it's just awkward. Like if a good percussionist would be able to play that voicing, it's just I don't think this is very good writing if this voicing occurs a lot. All right, Dio seems to have a question, and usually, also a lot of times it's better just to cut one of the notes. Like unless it's paramount, yeah. Like if you're writing a piece where voice leading is like super important, yeah, that's this would be totally fine if it was like approached from like here to yeah, like if it was approached by this weird chord. So let's just see if we can hear the voicing over here real quick. Gosh, I'm like balancing on one foot trying to play this. Like that's fine. That works just fine. But if it's just like if the opening note of this, if like every chord in the piece looks like this, I'm gonna be pretty upset. And I probably would ask them to. If it was a composition student of mine coming to me, I'd be like, you're going to rewrite this entire passage because I can tell them to do that. If it was someone who wrote a piece for an ensemble I'm in, I would be like, hey, in the future, watch out for these voicings. They're a little bit awkward. They'd probably, depending on composer, but generally composers are willing to change things if something's awkward or weird. And if it's just a piece I have to play because... and like I'm in an ensemble and I'm not really like a main person on that ensemble and I'm just coming in to play it, I'm just going to ignore it and let them kind of live with their crappy voicing. Speaking of mallet writing, Dio, we're going to look at your thing just real swift. It honestly wasn't that bad. The right hand's kind of weird, and I think that might be worth reapproaching. Because it's a little jumpy. Because the voicing I'm seeing right now is 4 3. Like the fourth mallet is just the outermost mallet on the right hand. Third mallet is the inner mallet on the right hand. Left hand's fine. Left hand's totally fine. It's actually very good. It's like. And so the question, and then it's going to be like 4 da da dun 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 dun. And just like it's a little jumpy. This might be better if it was just especially if it's like a percussion ensemble piece. And what's the context? It requires. Yeah, I wouldn't have too many big leaps. Like generally, it's kind of like guitar music, where if you're playing guitar, like classical guitar music, you're gonna hold one voicing as you go up and down the neck, and it's kind of similar. Like we try to hold similar mallet spacings. We try to hold similar mallet spacings over the entire marimba, because the more mallet spacings we change, we're doing 4 mallets. In general, yeah, try to maintain similar interval spaces. So, are you talking about your piece right now with should I keep the interval space instead of that awkward third? No, I think this would just work better on 2 marimbas because I think it's doable. I don't think it's impossible. It's maybe a little bit weird. Like I wish I had an actual instrument to go there and be like, how awkward is this? I will say it's kind of weird to have the octave there. Why not just if you really want an emphasis on the downbeat, you could double the left hand some way. For here, actually be totally fine because we have enough time, and the innermost mallet's going F sharp to A. That's totally fine. Get rid of the octave. Maybe the 7th jump is kind of awkward. Anyways, back to the voicing on this. It was my idea was for 3. And I can't just. I think I want 3 here again. What's the tempo for this? Because that'll really help me out here. Yeah. What's the tempo on this Dio? 116. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'd probably either just make if you really want what's the context of this piece? Is it like an orchestra piece? Is it a percussion ensemble piece? Small ensemble? Recording strings. Okay. Is Marimba the only person playing that top hand line, and are the strings playing the left hand line? That line you have in the left hand here, is this doubled somewhere else? Okay, you should send me the piece afterwards so I can give you a little bit of a better idea of how I'd look at it. But I will definitely give you some more specific advice that, that'll be more helpful for your specific case. But yeah, right hand looks a little bit awkward, and which is kind of exclamation point. Maybe let's look at it. But now let's get on to the more fun stuff. Well, hang on. I still have one more thing regarding mallets. If you don't play mallets and you're like, how do I write a good mallet part? Good rule of thumb is take 2 fingers and play it on the piano if you're doing a 2 mallet part. And then you want to take your thumb and your pinky for 4 mallet parts. And that'll give you a decent idea of what a mallet percussionist has to go through to play your stuff. And you'll notice it's not the most accurate, but it's better than just going oh, this seems playable. Yeah, and then if you're looking at like a non-pitch percussion setup and you're like, how are they going to play all these instruments? Just set down a bunch of like cardboard boxes and magazines and just like in the shape of like what you want to see if it's playable. And even if it's not a drum, like you're still hitting something and you can still practice like, okay, are there weird stick crossings? Is this too fast? You can explore that sort of stuff with those techniques. But what I'm really interested in teaching people is what does a percussionist do in a large scale setting? So like what common roles does percussion play in orchestral music? And who's doing those roles? What are some examples of that we can hear? So I'm going to start with my first example. Can anyone guess what my example is going to be? Like I'm gonna. No, okay, I'll give you a hint. It's by a very famous composer that I think a lot of people here like. All right, you get 10 more seconds for guesses, but. All right, we're just gonna jump. The Apple iOS ringtone? No, this is great. We're gonna turn this volume up. What happened there? What happened there? Like, I want to hear some guesses as to why I'm showing this example right now. Because this is like a super important concept, at least in my opinion. Like when I think about percussion writing, this is the first concept I think of. Let's just hear it again. You can't hear it. Oh, that's disappointing. Hang on, we're gonna close out of finale. Maybe finale's messing with it. Wait a second. It's gonna be silent and then it's gonna happen. Yeah, spliff. What was the spliff doing though? What was the spliff doing? All guesses are correct. Unless they're wrong, but they're going to be... We'll play it one more time. See if my point gets across. All right. So what was happening there is what I call triggering. Is a percussionist plays, something changes. First beat of this bar, because we're in 2, happens, and nothing's happening there. And then whip enters. And the whip causes the rest of the orchestra to enter. It has literally turned the piece on. Yeah, it's like a cue. It's like it marks a change, or it'll mark an entrance, or something along those lines. Really great example, a very obvious example of this. Same idea there. Is that the percussionist is causing a change in the rest of the ensemble. I think that's like one of the very unique things percussion does, is that when we enter, everything changes a little bit. Let's see. More examples. Ooh, symphonic. All right, so this is from... This is how percussion works. I'm talking about how percussion works in an orchestral texture right now. Like literally right now, I'm going through that. I had to go through some of the more basic stuff because I don't want to. Yeah, I had to go I would feel bad if I didn't explain what proper mallet voicing and all that stuff was, which is why I had to cover that first. But we're getting to the more fun stuff now. So yeah, so in this passage in Symphonic Metamorphosis, you're going to hear percussion enter, and there's going to be a mood change, and you'll hear it. Okay. Right, we're just on this one sort of mood. Waiting for it to hit the passage. But you can see that it's building to something. So good. Can't hear, really? Let's try that again. We're gonna go like... Can you people hear that? Yeah, my headphones are super loud, so it's just hard for me to know what people can't. But yeah, you're gonna see here. Right there, you hear that? Bam. Yeah, it's like immediately that simple crash, there's a change in character. We go from kind of like sinister, brooding, uncertain to very heroic, very, very macho. And this doesn't mean that all the time this is going to be super, super obvious. Why are we there in Mahler? We should be... Let's see, come on. Sorry. All right, here we go. Hear the timpani? And when the timpani enters right there, that's where there's a change of character. We're gonna let's go back like... Right? So we've had this really gorgeous, glassy and opening. I love this opening. I think this opening is brilliant. Right? Timpani enters. Chromatic bass line becomes more sinister. Immediately a change of character. We see this again. That's what percussion's... It's really quiet again. It's Mahler. It's really quiet. This section is really quiet. It's hard to hear, but I'll link this and I'll give you a timestamp, and people should definitely go listen to this at this timestamp. So at around 2:45, there was a timpani entrance. Yeah. You know the part, but I want to make sure other people know the part. So this is Mahler's first symphony. This is with Bernstein and Concertgebouw Orchestra. And it's around 2:45 that this happens. It's 2:43. Yeah. All right. Another great example that I really love, and I think is a very beautiful piece, is Joel Puckett's The Shadow of Sirius. So let's get some silence a little bit before the piece. Right? Immediately, percussion enters. What happens? Other people enter. It's kind of like the Mahler. Yeah, I guess. But what it's doing, like on a more technical side, is it's percussion is entering and changing the character. Like that is like when you write for percussion, that is like one of the number one things you should think about is, am I changing the character in some way, or it reinforces the character? And those are kind of like the two big takeaways I had from playing orchestral percussion throughout undergrad. Changing the character, like either reinforcing the character with just like, oh, yeah, changing the character. But I love this example because this is like a really, really such a beautiful example. Hear the flute start up here again. Yeah, it's really useful for those links. I'm surprised people can't hear this though. It's really frustrating. Yeah, so like if you hear that, like listen to Shadow Sirius, this is what's. Yeah, this is what people like. Yeah, but here's a link. Here's a link to Shadow Sirius. That's a really great example. Yeah, just literally like the first minute, and you can hear this happen multiple times. Another really, really good example of oh, thanks whoever did PDQ bot. Love that. That's very useful. Yeah. Oh, that's so much better. How do I oh, I go flat, I go P. Okay, I understand. Awesome. This is the example. The next example is like the example that really blew my mind. This is from Andrew Norman's play. Everybody type skip in the chat. It's a beautiful piece. Espio, no! This would have worked really great. It's okay. Everyone just mute that bot for a little. Or I can just keep talking about kind of triggering. So yeah. So one of my big takeaways. We're gonna mute that. All right. Well, while you're trying to deal with that deal, I'm going to continue. Yes, one of my big takeaways was triggering, and that is entirely when I approach composing for percussion. Think about triggering. And once we get to Andrew Norman's play, that'll be a really great example because it's really, really extreme, but I think it really like highlighted to me like, oh, this is what my instrument does. All right. Ooh. Yeah. This piece is a little crazy. Hear that? Every time percussion happens, something changes. I love this piece. All right. How do we pause this? Let's see if we can. Yeah, because I know people don't want to listen to that piece all day, but I think it's a really, really great example of good percussion writing. All right. Now let's talk about different. So I want to leave people. I want to throw a bone to our more pop-oriented friends here. Here's opening of this is a very great example. Jump to around 40 seconds. Gunshot happens. Bam, this is America. Complete change of character. It's the same thing. It works in every genre. It's so good. All right. Now, on to a little bit more subtle stuff. Yeah. So this, we're gonna share this timestamp. Oh, of course, it's starting at the beginning. But there's some the timpani writing in this piece is like the best timpani writing I've ever played, because it's really subtle. Dio, where are you, buddy? Not Dio, SBO, come on. We need you, buddy. Hang on, I'll just message him. Oh. All right. Well, while we listen to this piece, I'll answer some questions. Any questions so far on kind of my point about triggering? I know I'm a little bit beating the nail over the head, but oh, hear that timpani part just now? Very good. Very, very good. That's like an example of like a really subtle accent. And it really shows that Saint-Saëns thought about the timpani not as just notes, but as something that kept ringing. A lot of times, not the music that is good, but the percussion, like the timpani in particular, is poorly written. You can tell that they didn't. Oh, yes. There we go. Oh, that's so much better. Hear the timpani there? Just like, it's emphasizing what's happening in the section. Yeah. And we'll hear this timpani again soon. Yeah, here it is. There. He knows it's that percussionist didn't let it ring. That was wrong. Yeah, okay, yeah, bong. Exactly. Bong. So good. let's see, another great example. All right, and can we fast forward to like 8 minutes and 36 seconds in this recording? All right, so we're in the development now. And we're going to listen for what the timpanist is doing here. Yeah, this is a great example of emphasis. Da. Accent again. And yes, it's also emphasizing the accent. All right, we can pause. Thank you. If you want to hear, here it comes. Nope, not today, Caterpuss. Oh, you'd think I would go with the Rite of Spring chords. But the Rite of Spring chord. Oh, are you talking about the Rite of Spring chords that are in? Yeah. Well, don't worry. Rite of Spring's coming though. And so the reason that percussionists, yeah, I definitely like heavy low strings that are sort of like closely voiced. Because what's happening in Rite, if I remember correctly, is like something like that, like. But it's yeah, like. Speaking of Rite, we're gonna. Right. We want to fast forward to. Thank you. Beautiful. Too far? We want to set it to like 3016. So like that'd be like minus like what? 540? Oh, well, Catapus, you did read my mind. But yeah, those chords are definitely similar. And we're going to see here is that the percussion itself is acting as its own unit, but it's still sort of emphasizing a gesture, even if the gesture is done by the section itself. Doesn't seem to be working. Well, you know, we're going to see if we can hear it through. All right, and so this is the sacrificial dance. And the timpani is really its own gesture here. And then it's being doubled. I think it's being doubled by bass. But yeah, you can hear how Stravinsky is using the quick attack of the percussion instrument to emphasize the gesture. That gesture would be a lot less effective if it was like a low tuba, because the attack would be too long. And this is what percussion is really great at, is articulating gestures as well. This timpani part is so good. It's a very good timpani part. Never got to play it. This is also, if you notice, percussive writing for the entire orchestra. He's trying to use it as a percussion instrument. Which means it's about the attack, it's not about the decay or... And we can pause. Thank you. And that's sort of like why Stravinsky is such a good percussion orchestrator, is because he understands that he understands the role of percussion. The role of percussion is to trigger and to reinforce. Those are basically the only two things we do. And we do them really well. And reinforce can be more subtle, like reinforcing a flute passage by putting it on xylophone. That's really, really common in band music. If you want like a great example of that, we're not going to play this in the bot, but just like a masterclass in exceptional percussion writing is Maslanka 4. Can I, though? Yeah, Maslanka's a very, very good composer, and he's really good at percussion. I think one of the... thank you, Dio. I will see if this works for me. Let's just testing. Awesome. Because it was short, it was like the one thing. All right, that's, yeah. Yeah, we're force skipping that. Yeah, let's see. There's not too much left, because I think the big part of percussion is that it indicates mood changes and it reinforces them. This is just a really neat example that I've always been a fan of. Let's see where. All right. This video is like 2 minutes, and yeah. So how do we get to like half? I want to get to like 1 minute in here, and you'll hear it's really subtle, but there's a really lovely snare drum part. Thank you. Oh, that's how that works. Okay. Reinforcing the texture with the snare drum roll. It's really subtle. And also, you hear that again? Triggering. The snare drum roll leads into that triggering cymbal crash. So good. So good. It's very Wagnerian. It's very Wagnerian. We're just going to talk in this accent for the rest of this. No, we aren't. Wagner. Very Wagnerian. No, yeah, very Wagnerian, yes. Hello, my name is Joseph Wagner. Let's see. Here's another example. Because I want to, yeah, let's listen to the end of Miss Lanka 4. I think this is a good way to end. Oh. How do we skip? I want to skip to like 26, 24. Thank you. 25 minutes. Past 490. Oh, that's. What about? Yeah, I'm just gonna let you two deal with it. When we load it up again, here's the song again. Oh, beautiful. That's exactly what we're looking for. And I think you're just going to hear, the last thing I want you to hear is percussion filling up the space. This is the last thing we do. And I think it's pretty obvious. Like, this ending is entirely about percussion filling up the space. But percussion arrives, announces a change of character right here. Triggers a chord there. Triggers a chord there. And then it's just the greatest ending of all time. Love this end. Song goes hard. Yeah. That's really all I have to say on percussion. I know this is kind of like just like a scatter, like me putting stuff in chat going, hey, it does this. But percussion, we do very specific things. There are times where we don't, but yeah. Let's see, other percussion stuff I want. There's one, yeah, like one small thing is when you're writing for percussion, you're like, what do I double, or what is this triggering? Like, just think about like who someone's going to be listening to in a passage. Like, if there's bass in a passage and you're like, I want to add percussion, like, okay, who's going to be listening to the basses? It's going to be the timpanist. Likewise, like the person who's going to be listening to the strings or the woodwinds is probably going to be the snare drum. So just, keep in mind who's listening to who, and that'll really help you figure out where to double, how to double. But a lot of that's just from experience, and I can't like provide a prescriptive list, except generally in quiet passages, timpanist will double bass. All right. Open to questions. You can ask in voice chat too. It's probably faster.